I love it. Good evening and welcome to Dark Woods Paranormal. Folks, tonight is not an ordinary broadcast. For the last hour, the microphones were turned toward us as we joined tonight's guest on his nationally recognized program, After Hours AM. Now, one conversation becomes another. The roles have reversed. The questions change direction, and the man who has spent decades interviewing investigators, authors, researchers, and witnesses is stepping into the guest chair with us tonight. I, of course, am your humble host, Gabriel Von Graves, joined by Raven Nate. Raven, how you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm super happy to be here. How are you, Gabriel?
I am good. We welcome a man whose career has been defined by his willingness to enter the darkness without surrendering his judgment. Before we introduce him, we want to recognize the people who help Darkwoods Paranormal continue research audience searching for thoughtful and honest conversations about the unexplained. Darkwoods Paranormal is proudly syndicated on Dark Realm TV, a platform committed to paranormal programming, independent investigators, compelling stories, and the voices willing to explore what exists beyond conversational explanation. Don't you think, Raven?
I think so.
To our friends at Dark Realm TV, thank you for welcoming Darkwoods Paranormal into your family and for giving programs like ours a place to grow, investigate, and connect with audience who still believe that unexplained deserves serious attention. We also want to recognize 3J Hot Sauce. Raven, that was a good stuff, was it not?
Oh, it's so good. I actually found something to put it on. That sounds terrible,
Yes.
but like I found. Yep, I am almost empty. I need more. I need more.
At 3J Hot Sauce for supporting independent broadcasters, original content, and the work that happens both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. When you support the people who support independent programs, you help keep these programs alive. And now, let us introduce tonight's guest. For more than 30 years, Joel Sturgis has investigated the paranormal research cryptids, studied haunted locations, interviewed frightened witnesses, and followed reports that challenge conversational explanations. He has entered he has entered reportedly haunted homes, businesses, historical buildings, outdoor locations, and some of the Midwest's most compelling paranormal sites. He has examined unusual audio evidence, researched the history surrounding reported activity, and spoken directly with people who believe they have experienced something impossible. But Joel does not enter a case assuming that every sound is a spirit or that every sound is evidence. His approach combines open minded inquiry with careful investigation, historical research, witness interviews, and a healthy degree of skepticism. He understands that respecting a witness does not require accepting every explanation, and that asking difficult questions does not mean dismissing the unexplained. Joe has also spent years researching cryptids and unexplained creatures, with particular attention given to Bigfoot reports and the legends of the upper Midwest. As a member of the Minnesota Bigfoot Research Team, he has participated in field research, interviewed witnesses, examined alleged encounters, locations, and explored the compelling relationship between physical evidence, regional folklore, media influence, and the human perception. His research has included an extensive examination of the Midwest Iceman, or Minnesota Iceman. I never heard of Iceman. Have you, Raven?
I feel like I need to do some research. Hold on. No, I have not.
Iceman is one of the most controversial and unusual stories in American cryptid history. Was it evidence of an unknown creature? Was it an elaborate expedition? Or was it a story transmitted by public conflicting accounts, methodology, and the human desire to believe that something extraordinary has been discovered? Tonight, we are going to ask those questions. Joe is an author of the Unlimited Paranormal Investigators Field Guide, the American Cryptid Hunters Field Guide, and the Ultimate Midwest Haunted Place Road Trip Guide. Through these books, he draws upon decades of firsthand explanation or experience to explore the real workings of an investigation. Joel, we want to thank you very much for being here. Tell us about yourself, sir.
So excited you're here.
Well, you kind of did it already. No, I've been
That was it.
investigating.
Well, it's good to have you, Joe.
That
It
was
was
a great show.
great, my
Yeah,
friend.
Great
show's
show.
over, folks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for everything.
No, I just have a very curious mind. is how it really got started. I didn't grow up in I grew up in somewhat of a haunted house, but everybody did. Everyone had that weird house that they grew up in. You
Right.
knew of one or either lived in one, but everyone had that. Mine was actually more of curiosity. Just,
Mm.
I was a big fan of like shows like In Search of and Sightings. And, being a guy that's been in the radio business for as long as I have, I got to meet like guys like Art Bell. In fact, I used to work with Art Bell
Art
on
Bell,
Coast to
one of my
Coast
favorites,
AM.
my friend.
And so, he really instilled a lot of that because I actually used to be the board op for Coast to Coast AM
Oh,
for
wow.
our
That's
station.
amazing.
So I'd be able to sit there and listen, to every show. It was my job. It was great though. It's a great job to have because you'd sit there and you get to listen to Coast AM with Art Bell, and it was so cool. And I remember I started my own show many years ago, and it was a lead-in to Coast AM. And I was working at this radio station in Texas, and I had been working there for a little while, and I said, "Hey, I can do what Art's doing. It can't be that hard." Well, actually, it's very hard. And the great ones make it look super easy, right? So that's why Gabriel's so good at it, and why you're so good at it. The great ones
Thanks,
make
Matt.
it look effortless.
Go on.
So
Bruce.
I was thinking, hey, you know what? I can get a lead-in show for Coast. We could take advantage of it and basically make some revenue. I was looking for a pay bump, is what I was doing.
Right.
Because in that market, if you got a popular show, you got the pay bump, and you got this, you got that. Everybody wanted that. But the time, I was thinking, well, I get the same guests that Art's getting, and I could probably do just as good a job. No, I did not. So, long story short, though, I go to my program director at the time, and I pitched it to him, and he said, "Well, go talk to Dennis. We're going to talk about Dennis later on." And he was my general manager of the station, and he says, "Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to give you 1 hour to do your show before Coast comes on, but it's going to be after hours on the AM side. After hours AM is what you're stuck in." That he named the show. I went on the air and I said, "Well, here we are in the show, after hours AM. I don't know if anyone's listening, but let's try to do this thing." And so the name stuck, and I kept it around ever since, just kind of those humble days of, like,
Sure.
"Hello, anyone listening?" That whole thing. But it built an audience over the years, and it was a lot of fun doing it, and I learned a lot. Still not as good as Art Bell, never will claim to be. But I did work for Coast to Coast for a little while, and I was fortunate enough to be a host for Coast to Coast for a little while as well. So
That is super cool, by the way.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
I
That
know,
was one of
you
my
know,
favorite shows was Coast to Coast. In fact, I felt kind of bad for Art Bell at the end. I do believe the government was definitely trying to influence what went out of that studio of his. And what a wonderful, wonderful voice and in a magical mind. And I mean that.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. He was. There's two best people I've ever met in radio that could do it so well. One was Art Bell. Number two, oddly enough, is Paul Harvey. And that
Paul
is
Harvey.
the rest of the story. And I worked at the
Yes.
same station Paul Harvey did.
Okay.
And he would come in, and he'd come in once a month, and he would cut all of his shows in one afternoon and never do a retake.
Yeah.
He would come in, grab the copy, just start reading, be done, leave. Never had to do a retake, never nothing. That good. It was
Oh,
just
that's
so
amazing.
natural for him. And I could never do it like him. I
The
tried
voice of that
many a
man had,
time.
though, too, though. Oh, my Lord.
Oh, just,
Golden.
just and to be able to hang around with those kind of broadcast minds around me
Right.
was really, it was unfair because, and it was unfair to myself to not absorb more. Because at that time I was an arrogant, out of college radio host going, "Well, this is the way that should be." Well, no, there's a reason why they're at the pinnacle of what they're doing. So yeah.
That's
I love
great.
that.
I was gonna say your story just briefly reminded me a little bit of when I worked at Wolf 108. It was a radio station up in Eau Claire for a very small amount of time. I worked there for a
Yes,
summer.
Wolf 108.
Wolf
Yes,
108.
I used to deal with them. I used to work for JJO
Okay.
in Madison, Wisconsin. And
Yeah.
so for a brief time, I was there for a couple of years in good old serial killer land.
Then the
And,
serial killer man.
it was an experience.
The funniest part of that is that Wolf, he called himself Wolf. I don't know what his actual name was, but he I went up to him. I wanted to do a radio show. He was like, "Well, we'll give you a trial run." And then never said anything else to me after that. I just kept showing up. I ended up having my own show. And my my show was in the Banbury Place, which is a super haunted, like one of the, haunted places in Wisconsin. And Chad Lewis had his talk show right afterwards. So I know that you know Chad. So that's why I was like,
Yep.
that's really funny. I just kept showing up. And like I never got a paycheck for it. I just wanted to be there. I wanted
Yeah.
to be there, and then I would hang out in the little waiting area and listen to Chad as he did his talk show with Terry Fisk after that, and it was just amazing. Some of the best times ever. Even though that place was super creepy at night. But
Oh yeah, no, I remember that station, Eau Claire. That was one of the affiliates. Yeah, Midwest used to own them,
yes,
and I
yeah,
remember that affiliate. And well, think how cool it is now in the radio industry with podcasting, right? Whether
It's the new
whether it's a good or
radio.
bad thing, it's everyone's own opinion,
Right.
but everyone gets a chance to do it now. Where
yeah.
before, voices couldn't be heard unless you knew somebody or if you got a job somewhere.
Regulations everywhere.
Yeah. Yep, or
Podcasting
you
is a
just
lot of freedom.
Right?
You
Yeah.
just keep showing up to a radio station that they don't pay you, and they don't even know if you even knew that I was doing it.
They didn't even know who you were. They're like, who is
Like,
this
"Yeah,
lady?
she does it for an hour." I was Missy Misdemeanor at the time was the name I went under, but yeah, it was something.
So,
It
Joe,
was something else.
you have a rich history of the paranormal. Out of all your experiences dealing with, being on Art Bell's show, and knowing all the people you know in your own radio broadcast, you are heard on iHeartRadio AM, correct?
Yeah, we're AM, FM on iHeart. We're iHeart property,
Yep.
Yep.
so we're kind
And
of blasted everywhere on that
right,
network.
out of
Which
all your experience, what is your least favorite thing, or what? Let me retract that. Where is the most scariest place you've ever been, and you were like, "Wow, this is really happening," and it blew your mind?
oh boy, well, scariest at the moment, or scariest all the way around? Well, okay, scariest the moment is I was working at radio stations are creepy. A lot of them are very creepy. And I have my own theory for that because there's a lot of EMF involved with
Oh,
radio
absolutely,
stations,
there is.
right? So, I
Right.
mean, in fact, we used to go, one of my jobs there was to go to the transmitter room. And this is the early days of cell phones, like the Nokia brick. Remember that
Right.
big
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
black Nokia
Yeah.
brick, right? So I have to go to the transmitter room, and for our FCC, that you got your readings right off the transmitter, what you're doing, and so because the FCC need to know all that stuff. That thing would shut your phone off. There was so much EMF in that room. It would blink it right off. So there's something. Probably shouldn't be in there for a long period of time if
Right.
it's shutting phones off, right? So it was a creepy place, but I think a lot of that was because of the EMF that we're ingesting every day. So it kind of gives you that. But this is no EMF story because I've been hit with that 1,000 times that, oh, well, radio stations have a lot of EMF. Yes, they do. I want to address that right away. Absolutely, you're not wrong. And a lot of people get a creepy feeling in them because of that. This one is not that. I was working at a radio station in Dallas, Texas, and you know what? I don't mind. I'm not a country music guy. Okay, I'm just gonna put that out there. But I was working at a country music radio station. It's the place where you get a job right out of college. So here I am working the night shift, and I would it was 12 hours of tear in my beer, and my truck doesn't run kind of music, and you
Right.
know what? It paid the bills, and it taught me a lot about the business. But one of the biggest influences in the building happened to be an old 80-year-old cowboy that he would come in on Sunday mornings after I was done on my show, and I'd gotten to know him quite well. Roy Johnson was his name, just a wonderful dude. But when I say he's a cowboy, I mean he was really a cowboy. Like he used to drive cattle from Kansas to Texas, and he remembered when the West was still pretty wild. Because you got to figure this is probably circa 1996, and he
Wow.
was in his
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s at this point. So he saw a few things where America was still pretty much wild, and he wasn't born a radio guy, but he became one, and people loved him because he was just so endearing and nice, and he always had these great on the trail stories. Like He'd always start a show with, "Hey, great for you to be on the trail with me," and he would talk about doing all that stuff. Well, Roy was also a big influence on me because he taught me how to be genuine and nice to other people too, though. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
that real solid figure, the salt of the earth kind of guy. So, getting back to my story is every Sunday morning, Roy would come in without failure. He never missed a day of work. I was there for 4 years up until this point, and he never missed. I mean, he'd been there 20, or 10 years, whatever, before I was there. Never missed a day of work. He was like the Iron Man. And so when he came in one Sunday morning, it was like any other day. It didn't, we talked. I gave him a long ramp up, which meant I put a long set of music on for him. So he'd get in the studio and kind of get settled in. It wasn't rushed to do so. And he always appreciated that. He always liked that about me. And really, I was just taking the opportunity to talk to him and pick his brain a little bit and hear his stories, right? Because it was whenever he was talking, it was like pulling up to the campfire. Like, oh, what's the story going to be this time? And so him and I were talking like any other day, and he's drinking his coffee, and we're talking, and he's all excited because the Texas Ranger baseball team at that time was doing really well, and he was excited, and he says, "Well, I gotta go on the air, happy trails, partner." And I said, "Hey, Roy, great talking to you, man." He goes, "You too. See you later." So now this radio station was a two-story radio station. Upstairs, you had your break room and your broadcast station. It's upstairs, your broadcast booths. And to leave, you had to go through the business offices and stuff like that to leave. And so you go out the front door. And down there was my general manager's office. And Dennis was a good dude, but, Dennis was a typical early 90s radio guy. He liked his drink. He lived the lifestyle, let's just put it that way. And in order to get him to be there on a Sunday morning would take, like, the place would have to be on fire. I mean, the place would have to be going down in flames. That'd be the only way you get him there on a Sunday. So who do I see standing there as I'm leaving the building? And I see Dennis. And my first thought was, oh, I'm going to be fired. There's got to be a good reason why he's standing there, when end of my shift. So I walk up to him and I cautiously go, "Hey, Dennis, how you doing, man?" Kind of reading, because where he was at, why he was there. And finally, I kind of said, "Well, what brings you here?" And he says, "Well, I'm here to cover a shift." And he's not happy. You could just, he's just not happy about the situation at all. And I say, "Well, I'm just leaving and Roy's upstairs and we're the only ones scheduled until, 11 o'clock. And, so you're good." I mean, at this time, it is like 8 o'clock in the morning because Roy went on at 8. And I said, "You're good. You can go. I'll hang around here." And he says, I got to be here because I'm covering Roy's shift. No, Roy's here. He made it to work. I thought maybe Roy had being as old as he was, maybe he did call in. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. Maybe he thought he wouldn't be able to make it to work. I said, "No, Roy ended up making it work. He's here." He says, "That's impossible." I said, what do you mean that's impossible?" "He's here. I was just talking to him upstairs. He was drinking his coffee. We had a great conversation." "No, Joe, Roy is dead." "What?" "Roy's dead. He passed away last night asleep. He had a stroke." What? And I had that moment of processing in my head, like, what
Sure.
in the world's going on here? So I turn around and I say, "Okay, no, that's not the case. Let's go upstairs and prove to you Roy is here." Because I thought maybe this is the world's worst joke. I thought this is the worst
Terrible
taste of
joke.
joke
Yeah.
that anybody could ever do to somebody else. So we go upstairs and the studio is completely empty. Luckily we have an auto DJ that kicks in if there's no live person there, so we
Yeah.
don't have dead air.
Yeah.
Pardon the, no pun intended.
Yeah.
So the auto DJ is playing, and I'm looking in the studio, and I go in there, and there's nothing there. Nobody's there. And I come out, and Dennis is looking at me. I'm white as a ghost at this point. And we go in the break room, and I sit down, and I'm like, "This can't be possible." And Dennis is like, I know you guys are close. I knew you liked each other really, really well. And I looked over, and the styrofoam cup he was drinking out was on the table, and the coffee's still hot. I, I said, that's his coffee. He was just drinking out of it. He was just, I'm telling you, he was just here. I just talked to the man. And a couple things hit me. Number one, the coffee. Number two, do you guys, maybe Gabriel, you remember this? Stetson cologne was big. Remember Stetson
Absolutely.
cologne?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He used to wear Stetson, and I could smell his
yeah.
cologne in the air.
I mean,
And
that's
I'm
a
like,
that's a smell. Like, you know that
he
smell.
was
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So it took me a minute. I'm like, holy crap. I just talked to a freaking dead guy, number one. Number two, the thing that scared me afterwards was, not only did I just talk to this person that was clearly had passed away, but then subsequent nights I'm saying to myself, Roy, I like you, but do not show up here.
Mhm.
No, I don't, at that point, I don't know what I would have done. I mean,
Right.
like, well, being a 20-plus-year-old kid, I don't know that, now I'd say, hey, sit your translucent butt down. We got some discussing to do.
I got some
But
questions.
then I was absolutely terrified. So I worked there for another few months, and you would smell that cologne every now and again. You'd feel the presence there once. I mean, he was a large figure, as in just his personality was very large, and he was the kind of guy that would fill a room, and that whole thing. And for a while there, his influence was definitely there. You could smell him being there. I ended up getting another job with a place called Jones Radio at that time. And part of the reason why I did leave was A, was to get off the night shift, but B, was because of that incident. I wanted to get away from that. And so, but yeah, that was the freakiest moment of my life.
Well,
It's
let me
crazy.
ask you, Joe,
Crazy.
why do you think that an energy would stay around? And what do you think that was? Do you think that it was you just going through the same routine that you just you kind of, brought this entity onto yourself? Or do you think that there are times that people are just made for a certain thing and they just things keep on going even if time has stopped?
Well, I got two theories on that. Number one, I've thought about that. Was I the catalyst?
Right.
Was it me that brought that upon? Which I would have believed that more if there wouldn't have been the physical evidence,
Right.
the coffee cup, the tangible things that were there. I guess I'd be more apt to go. I might imagine that whole thing. That might have been me conjuring that whole thing. I get where you're going with that, and I respect that because thought forms are a thing. Thought forms of self-haunting is a thing.
Sure.
I think that he had such a love for the game,
Yeah.
and there's a good chance that maybe he suddenly died so fast that maybe he didn't realize that he died yet.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
that's what I mean when you're telling that story. That's what I'm thinking. It's he's just doing his daily routine. If he would have died in the middle of the night and didn't even know, you just get up and go to work the next day. Like, get your
Yeah, yeah,
coffee.
and
When we know, like you're saying, dead air is terrible. You don't want
yeah,
to. You
yeah.
don't have. You want to have dead air. You got
Right.
to cover
Well,
your
then
shit.
after the fact, though, I try to talk to a few of my coworkers about what had happened. Well, and kind of gauge how they're going to take
Right.
it, and it didn't take me long to realize, oh, they all think I'm freaking nuts. So I'm just going to keep this to myself because I'd bring it up and they go, "Woo, yeah, spooky Joel." They'd make fun of me, stuff like that. So which I could handle. That wasn't the problem, but you kind of get. I didn't want to. I didn't want my career to be tarnished by that. Like, right? I didn't want to get the reputation of being the weird. Now I definitely wear that as a badge of honor because come
Absolutely.
on, that's nothing to be afraid of. Seeing ghosts. But back then,
Yeah.
ghost hunting and ghosts and stuff were very taboo. I mean, people really didn't talk about it openly
Right.
like they do today.
Yeah, and you say
So
that, but we've mentioned that on the show before, like how that's
yeah.
changed over the years. So it's good that it has in a way, right? Because people like you can tell your story and let it be known without being like spooky Joel.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
The
yeah,
judgment, the stigma
yeah,
is gone.
So
yeah.
as you look back to it, do you think that encounter was meant for you? Do you think he liked you so much he wanted to say goodbye one more time?
I'd like to think so. I really would, but I think he just loved radio that much.
Sure.
Maybe it's a combination. That could be, but there was no, in the conversation we had, there was no inkling of finality. There was no, I'm never going to see you again or goodbye. It was just like any other Sunday morning. There was no even thought that, I wasn't going to see him again.
Right.
So it wasn't, and no parting messages or anything like that. I've thought about that many times, but I think a lot of it was actually, him being a creature of habit, which he was, and then also loving what he did.
That's
fair.
a very magical time. I wish I've had experiences like that with somebody that loved something so much, death couldn't even keep it from them. I think there's a romance in that. When you think back, is there any other clues? Do you remember thinking back and feeling different when you walked into a room? Because you can feel that energy. As you know, as an investigator, you walk into a place that obviously does have something to it. You can feel that. Do you remember ever feeling anything?
He was as solid as you and I.
Yeah.
He didn't feel any different. He looked just like Roy always did. Had his cowboy hat on and looked just as solid as anyone else all the time. There was no feeling of, energy or cold or anything. That it was just a normal interaction.
Were you hesitant to go back? You said I kind of felt
Oh
your
yeah,
yeah.
no, I was thankfully that I had 2 days off after that because yeah, yeah, I was pretty nerve wracked when I went back, especially that Sunday, the following Sunday,
Oh, I bet.
because I remember saying it out loud, Roy, if you're here, do not show me yourself. Just stay away. Because like I said, I don't know what I would have done at that point in my life.
Sure.
And surprise, I'm back. With what my reaction would have been.
So
Well,
how do you go from?
go ahead, Raven.
I was gonna say, how do you go from? And I don't want to like interrupt your question, Gabriel, but how do you go from that, to being like, I don't want to have this experience. I don't want to do this. To then taking it all the way to the other side.
Curiosity. After things settle, after you absorb what you've gone through, when you digest it as an individual, you start getting curious of what happens. What did he go through? What am I going to go through? What are others going through? What is on the other side? Because we're all headed to the same destination.
Absolutely.
Right. Right.
And it made me very curious. What's next? Okay, so now if that happens, I know now in my head there's life after death because I experienced it. So now I want to know the nuts and the bolts of it. How does it work? Do we keep going on? Is it just a moment in time you have? I mean, all these questions I have. As soon as I have the answers, the questions change.
Sure.
So, it's a moving target. I just when I think of a handle on it, something comes along and changes everything. But what changed me to become the investigator in me was that moment. That was it. After I was able, like I said, to sit back and really think about what had happened, it made me curious. And then I met a couple of people named the Warrens.
You met the
That
Warrens. Okay.
I was doing a
How old
radio
are
story on the Warrens, and this is years ago. And they were at that time doing their college tours and stuff, and they happened to be they came to Texas and the Dallas area, and I being the short or the low man of the totem pole at the station, I had to go interview the spooky people during October, right? Because that's everybody would always laugh during October. Oh, here comes the ghosties, that whole thing. But it was cool. I mean, say what you will about the Warrens, right? I know
Yeah.
they're getting a lot of heat right now, whatever. But at that time, they were the name in the paranormal.
Sure.
I mean, they were the ones bringing it to the forefront, right? So when I interviewed them, they're very endearing. They're very nice people. They came into studio, we talked, and I told them my story. And for the first time, no one laughed at me. They believed it. They weren't like, No, that's bull. They were understanding, and I'm not saying that we were close by any means, but I knew them well enough to speak with them. And but like I said at that time, they were them and Peter James was another name at that time that were heavy into investigating. But it was the Warrens, yeah, yeah. And so I kind of dug deep into what they're doing, tagged along with them for a little bit here and there, and kind of got a handle on things that way.
Did you ask the Warrens when you're talking to him, to is he still around? I mean, she was supposed to be clairvoyant, right? So was she able to tap into Roy, or did you ask her?
I never asked.
Okay.
I never asked.
I suppose it's been rude here. You're interviewing, like, I guess. I get that.
Well, yeah, and I guess maybe part of me, to be honest, Gabriel, I don't think I want to know.
No, I agree with you.
I was still at that point of trying to figure out, because I mean, now let me back up. This was a different radio station I was at when I
Right.
interviewed the Warrens, so
Yep.
it wasn't at that original station. So had it been at the original station, I might have been more inclined to go, "Hey, you got Roy still kicking around here? Is he still doing radio on the other side?" But I was trying to remove myself from that. But really, it kind of drew me in because, here we are. I'm talking to people, and it wasn't just the Warrens though. Brad Steiger, I got to know him very well. He was a big influence for me. I got to know. I got Hans Holzer was a big influence. I got to know him real well. So anyone that I could get to, I used my radio credentials to be able to talk to a lot of these people on purpose. Because after that, I'm like, hey, let's get them on the show. Let's see what they have to say. Luckily, I was in that kind of position to be able to reach out to these people and get them on the show and be able to pick their brain about what I want to talk about.
Right.
And that was one of the beauties of being in the media. But I did learn a lot, and more questions were arisen though, even through talking to them, because as great as they were, they didn't have the answers either.
That makes me wonder, like, what was something that you would have learned from them? Like, what did you take away that you can say is one of the best pieces of advice, or not even advice, but best pieces from them?
I think Hans Holzer said it best to me when we were discussing it, and he said, and Brad Steiger actually echoed this: your mind, your brain will always be the best tool you're ever going to have. Your own intuition. It will always be the best tool. And that's true. That is true. In fact, when we just, we were just discussing this last hour when you're on after hours, that ourselves, our brains, what's between your ears, is the most powerful tool we have in the toolbox, our own intuitions.
When you were interviewing the Warrens, did you believe them? I mean, was there an element that you're like, I kind of, because when you meet people, we interview, and I'm sure you have too. You interview witches or people that say that they definitely have an in, right? They can feel things,
Yeah.
And a lot of them, as I'm talking to them, they just can't. They're not able to tell me what it is that they're able to do or explain their position on things, and I'm like, but this is happening to you. You're a witch.
No,
Explain
yeah.
that to me, right?
Right with psychics, I'm still waiting for the lotto numbers.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if that's the deal, you at least give me the lotto numbers. That and every reading I've ever had from a psychic, because I'm going to be rich, famous, and handsome.
Right, right.
So I've kind of missed the boat on that. But
2 out of 3 ain't bad, right?
Well, that's right. That's true. The Warrens, in my opinion, after interviewing them, I think I interviewed them over 12, 14 times during my career.
That's significant. Sure.
They were definitely showmen. They were. I don't want to speak ill of the dead at all.
No, of course not.
But they're showmen. I mean, everybody knows that Ed Warren was definitely a showman. I mean, to some extent, that's how he got his message across. And he had the TV show and stuff. Do I think that everything that they did was legit? I'm going to say probably wasn't. I think there was some showmanship going on, and I'm going to say this, and this can be very controversial. Annabelle's a bunch of bull.
Oh, absolutely she is.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
went to the museum and I saw the Annabelle, and because they invited me to their little museum, so this years
Sure.
ago when I was a kid, I went.
And you're like, of course, you know,
And I went, of course, you know, hey, I'll go to Monroe, not a problem.
absolutely.
And I ran around the little area that they got. And he's like telling me all about this Annabelle, and I kind of heard the stories. So I did something terrible. I did some digging on some of the records because one of the stories was about the motorcyclist that died after it taunted Annabelle.
Yes.
Well, Monroe is not a very big place, and an accident like that would have definitely made the papers, and there would have been a public record of such thing happening, especially decapitation in those days. That would have made big news. There was nothing in the public record. So, yeah, take that what you will. Do I think that there's dolls out there that have demons attached? I don't know. Maybe there is, but I don't think it's Annabelle.
So you bring up a really interesting, like we talked about this on your show not too long ago, but how important it is to kind of get that our history, right? When you're doing a case or talking about, things that are haunted, and how people really do like to exaggerate, right? Like you're talking about the word
Sensationalize. Yeah.
sensationalize. Thank you, Gabriel. Like, or like, we know there are a lot of showmen out there, especially now. Especially now that now it's cool to be in the paranormal field. We know
We
there's.
are called the Zach Bagan of it all.
I was gonna
know?
not say it because I was like, watch, Joel knows him too.
Yeah, but it's okay.
I do know Zach
You make money
Baggins,
doing
and
it.
I
It's
have
all good.
stories.
You know?
I've never been afraid to say where the bodies are buried, so to speak. So,
Good.
I'm willing to call things out. That I've never shied away from that. Yeah. So, getting to your point, I think it's very important to know history. I do. But I also think you have to make sure it's the right history that you're following, because the history is written by infallible people, right? It's his
Absolutely.
story.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you don't know what you're getting half the time. I do know that there would have been a death record for two young people dying on a motorcycle being decapitated in Monroe.
Right.
I do know that there would have been a police report, at the very least, in existence. There wasn't. That's all I can say. And Zach Baggins, huh? Well, we can go there.
Zach Bagan of it all.
I think that, and I don't mean just him directly.
right.
No.
I think that paranormal television should really come with a big disclaimer saying A, it's not a training guide, and B, entertainment purposes only.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If people knew, I just did a show called The Lost Monster Files. And that deals with cryptids, of course. And I was dealing with the Minnesota Iceman, is what I was talking about. And you would not believe, we're supposed to be alone in the woods. Yeah, with 50 of our closest friends standing around us running cameras.
Right.
So, and they'll say, stop. Can you do this? Now you got to turn this way. Can you do it this way? Oh,
right.
you got
The
we
lighting's
have to
not
get the
good.
drone,
Yeah.
Yep.
right? We have to get the drone shot next. So
Right,
can you do
right.
that again?
Right.
So anybody that thinks that these shows are I don't want to say they're not legit, but you got to remember that there might be only two people on screen, but there's 30, 40, 50 people. There's a whole brigade of people that are into production.
Absolutely.
So, take it for what it is. Take it for entertainment, but don't take it as a training guide.
Yeah, and like we also talked about how people, especially on certain shows, it's like, oh, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, but we've been in locations where nothing happens at all night.
Right,
You're like, oh, okay,
right.
well, I'm
Right.
tired.
Well,
and it's
okay.
a long night
For-
and it's
for-
boring. Yeah,
Look at like Villisca Axe Murder House for one.
yeah,
Right. I mean, the story is very interesting from a true crime point of view.
Absolutely.
Very interesting to me. But if there's children that are suffering right now and the owner tells you, don't get rid of my ghost, don't clear this house because I'm making money off that, number one, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's bull, right? If that's what's happening. What broke my heart is the potential that there's these children in this house that are confused of what's going on, if that's the case. But
Send them free.
let them go.
Yeah.
Let them go
They've
to the
already
other
suffered enough.
side.
Yeah,
Right? And if there's kids that are trapped on that side without closure,
Mm-hmm.
and you're stopping them from getting their freedom by being, by having it cleansed. You're just as bad as the murderer. You're
Absolutely.
you you're exploiting them just like they did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that brings me to another topic. So you you obviously have met some of the big players in the paranormal field. What has most disappointed you when you've been on investigation? Something that you thought that, this was going to be just great and it turned out to be a nothing sandwich. But yet, everybody that's been there has just been like, "Oh, this is the most amazing part." Would you mind telling stories about something like that?
Yeah, there's a few different places like that. Not just one though. That's the bad. It'd be different if there's only one or
Right?
two, but there were several. That didn't live up to, in my opinion, the billing.
Sure.
Right. So
Sure.
like one of them was for me anyway, and your mileage may vary. Right. So
Absolutely.
Waverly Hills was a lot of walking for me. I
Hmm.
mean, but there wasn't the pop wasn't there. Like, when I got there to investigate, I'm being told this is the most haunted place you're ever going to be in. They talked it up pretty heavy.
Sure.
And me, I
Well,
go
you had
in
to buy
with,
the ticket.
right, right.
Yeah.
Once they got your money, they don't care what
Yeah.
happens
No.
then, 'cause they
No.
already
No.
got your money, so they
Right.
care
Right.
less.
Right. Right.
So I went in there, and this is at the time I was working for a company, and they sent me in there for it was a radio remote we were doing during Halloween, and I had to go to Waverly Hills Sanatorium because back then I was secretly a ghost hunter. I didn't tell everybody yet. I wasn't like coming out of the closet, so to speak, going, "Hey, I'm looking for ghosts now, everybody." This is still the '90s, where they'd look at you like you just got dropped off by the mothership. So I'd always volunteer whenever that time of year would show up. Oh yeah, yeah, I'll go do that. Yeah, yeah, put me there. So I went like to I ended up going to Waverly, and it was cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. For the history side of it, I
Absolutely.
thought it was sad because these people had to go through this. B, it was almost a time capsule of misery, in my
Oh.
opinion.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Just because what
Yeah.
these poor people had to go through. I mean, my God, you imagine that. But as far as ghosts go, I was like, this is it. I mean, I was in there by myself.
Yeah.
I was walking around by myself. I'm like, this is it. I mean, it's dirty. This time is dirty. And I think it was the only place I ever stood in water, breathed in dust in my life. So I mean, it was not as haunted or as active for me. Now I'm
Yeah.
saying that
Right.
for me, because it could change for you. It could change for Gabriel. It could. I
Right.
mean, for other people, it could be the most haunted place they've ever been. For me, it just didn't do it for me. Just didn't do it for me.
And that's too bad because I do think I'm all about preserving history, and for what I know about you, so are you. History tells a
Yeah.
story that needs to be told, but I think sensationalizing things, and we touched on that a little bit on your program where we've been in places, and they add dolls or cheap dollar store stuff to kind of get the excitement there, and I think that really does distract from
Yeah.
what could happen because you're fixated on something that just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And you start muddying the waters, don't you? I mean, you start bringing things
You
from
do.
outside.
You absolutely
You,
do.
you know, now we're muddying the paranormal waters. Keep
Right.
it as pure as you can. If the furniture was there, leave it there. But
Right.
don't be bringing crap in from the outside, in my opinion. Leave
No.
it as pure as it can be.
Yeah.
We were at a funeral home. You said on your program you actually live in a funeral home, which I think is cool. We were at a funeral home in West Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a lot of articles that weren't from that place, and they brought it in, and you're like, yeah, this is and I was thinking, if you would leave that stuff out and just tell the story,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
don't bring in broken stuff from a church or from a haunted item because you're not getting the real story that's
Story.
behind there. Are you're not able to understand the environment in its natural state. You know,
Right.
um,
Right.
is
Yeah.
your funeral parlor that you live in, is it haunted?
No.
No.
No, not really.
But we
No.
know, like, funeral parlors, cemeteries don't necessarily
No.
mean they're
See,
haunted.
I
It's
actually think funeral parlors, if you think of it in the reality of it, people are going to express their love. They're not going to sit there and kill people. That part has
No.
already happened. They're there
Yeah.
to express, how much this person mattered to you in your life. So I actually think that a lot of funeral parlors are happy places because you're going there, missing the person, which is a positive feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, not all old places are haunted, and not all, and not all places that are old are haunted. So I mean,
It's true.
that's just it right there. Is my house. It's about 1882, pretty old. It had a good run. It's been a good home. It had a few has other things too that happened during Prohibition. People used to run booze out of here. So I mean,
Sure.
that
What
could,
a wonderful historic
Whole
place to
history
be.
already. Yeah. Yeah.
right. But the thing of it is, it just isn't haunted. I wish I could say it would. Otherwise, I would be selling the house and charging money for people to be
Yes.
coming through here.
So
Yes.
You know,
I've actually lived in a haunted house, and it was in Elmwood. I was briefly telling that on your program that anyone wants to check out that story, you should do that. And I can tell you, living in a haunted house is not all what it's cracked up to be. There's elements that distract you from your personal life, you know. So anybody that lives in a haunted house, I actually feel bad for them because
yes.
that's your sacred
Well, you're just trying to
place,
sleep or something, and you got
and
some.
it no longer
like
becomes
you,
that.
yeah.
So,
Oh,
with the
That's
little
just
time
it.
that we have left, tell me about the Iceman, and then also,
yes.
and I love doing this. Convince me that there's a Bigfoot.
Wait. Do the Iceman first. Do the
Yep,
Iceman first,
yep.
Well,
and
I
then we
could,
have.
yeah.
You just
Well,
two-parted this,
in
Gabriel.
Yeah, I did.
1960, a guy named Frank Hansen
Okay,
was stationed at the Duluth Air Wing,
right.
and he would go hunting in an area that's called the Whiteface Reservoir. And him and three of his buddies went deer hunting one year in 1960. And Frank Hansen ended up shooting a deer. The deer ran, and he ended up tracking the deer. When he finally found the deer, there were three Bigfoot that were feeding on this deer. One of them stood up, looked at him, and charged Hansen. Hansen shot it dead. So the story goes. The other two fled into the woods. So Hansen ended up downing this Bigfoot, and in a panic, he leaves the Bigfoot because he's thinking he killed a person, is
Oh,
what he
sure.
initially thought. So he leaves the Bigfoot. Him and his friends take off, doesn't even grab the deer, just takes off. They all leave the woods. Some time passes, because you gotta remember this is winter time, so about a week passes, and he decides to go get this thing that he shot. He figures he's gonna go to the woods and he's gonna go get this body, this corpse is out of the woods. So he does. He goes back the first time. He realizes he doesn't have the tools to get it out. So then he comes back the second time and enlists his buddies to come help him get this Bigfoot out of the woods. So he does get it out of the woods, and it ends up he brings it back to Duluth, Minnesota, where you guys are where that is, and he keeps it on. He keeps this thing on ice, right? Because originally it wasn't on ice. He had it in a freezer. But his wife came up with the great idea to preserve it better because it started to smell by putting water in the freezer and then it would preserve it better. That's how I got the Iceman. But years later, allegedly he had this thing on ice for 5 years in Duluth in a freezer. He decides that I can make some money and I'm going to take this around the country. I'm going to show this off, this Minnesota Iceman. So he ends up charging, I think at that time, 25 cents a piece to come in and see the Iceman. Now, several people have gone in, people I've talked to, they all say, yeah, that was legit. And then he had two prominent veterinarians, and I have to look at my notes from the University of Minnesota, gave the stamp of approval. Boom, that was a creature. They would bet their licenses on it. This was a creature. That was a Bigfoot. So they discover that it could be, it was a Bigfoot. And Frank starts freaking out because what if there's some humanoid in this? Would I be liable? Would I be a murderer at this point? So he decides what he's going to do is he's going to have a replica made of the Iceman, except he's going to have pictures taken of every process of them making this replica.
I do know
So he ends up showing off the replica instead. The Iceman remains on ice, and he keeps the Iceman for a while. Story goes, it was sold to somebody, changed hands several times over the years. Now the Iceman, you can go see it in Texas at the Museum of the Weird.
Hmm.
The Iceman is on display.
Have you been?
I have. I have. And now the replica is on display. The original Iceman, no one knows what happened to the body, but allegedly it was the real deal. Now, several witnesses came out of the woodwork because the guy figured it was 1960 that I grew up
Right.
10 minutes from where he shot the Iceman. So
Okay.
I knew the players that were involved. Years go by, they're getting up in the years. I interview them and they all finally they decide they're going to talk to me one on one. They tell me what they saw, how they helped him get the body out of the woods. That was a Bigfoot. That was real. That all was a real
Wow.
story. That all happened. It was real. So
Okay.
years go by. I contact the Hansen family. They claim that he buried it somewhere on the family farm. So the Lost Monster Files, the TV show, if you go watch it, they did their whole thing where they were trying to get out of their ground and that whole thing. And the FBI allegedly gets involved. I don't know, to be honest. I cannot tell you definitively that was a Bigfoot, but a lot of the eyewitnesses do say it was. A lot of people that have nothing to lose or nothing to gain say, yeah, that was a Bigfoot. They've got nothing. These are all old men get ready to die. What are they gonna do?
Sure.
For money, they're gonna tell me it was a Bigfoot. They had no reason to lie. They're gonna say what they saw, and they all say it was a Bigfoot, legit. Now the only reason why I can convince you, well, maybe I can't convince you it's a Bigfoot, but I know they're real because I saw one.
Can you tell the story?
Yeah, I was camping at the Whiteface Reservoir where this happened.
Okay. Northern
And
Minnesota.
it was, yep, northern Minnesota.
Okay.
It was in St. Louis County, northern
Sure.
Minnesota.
Yep.
It's Whiteface Reservoir Campground. Anyone can stay there. Anyone listening, if you want to go up there, it's a great campground. I suggest you check it out. It's wonderful up there. It was fall of the year. Used to be an avid hunter. I
Okay.
was a grouse hunter.
Well,
And I
gross.
was staying there during the fall of the year. And I was at my campsite number 52. If you guys want to rent that campsite, that's the infamous campsite. Minding my own business, cleaning my shotgun from the day. And I remember I had my fire going, and I looked up, and across the campsite from me is a Bigfoot staring at me. Now, it wasn't like I'm all cool like I am here. It was like, I'm going to pee myself.
Right.
What am I looking at?
Right.
Number one. I'm like, what the hell is this? It looked at me. I looked at him. I'm the only one in the campground at this point. It's late in the fall. Camping season's way over. And the only ones that are there is occasionally you get a fisherman coming through. But I do remember when I was sitting around the campfire, I kept on smelling this terrible smell, like just terrible rancid smell. And I didn't believe in Bigfoot this time. You know what? No way. In my mind, Bigfoot was not real. What the hell? I should have thought better because I talked to a dead dude. I should have said to myself, anything's possible. But this time I was saying, there ain't no Bigfoot. No way.
Right.
So here I am, and I'm cleaning my gun. I look up, and there's a Bigfoot, and he's about a 9-footer. Just huge, hulking, just, and it had very human eyes. I remember looking at the eyes, very human. And this is dark time. I mean, it's pretty dark out. And I had the campfire going, and I remember, the only thing lighting up the area is the campfire. And I remember the eye shine. It had a little bit of eye shine, like predator eye shine. And I was he's looking at me, and I bet you the encounter was maybe 20, 30 seconds. But a couple things went through my head. Number one, this is a damn Bigfoot, and I don't believe in Bigfoot. Number two, my obituaries get really weird. Man found ripped apart by, whatever in this campground. It looked at me, I looked at it. We had our moment, and it turned around and it left. But when it left, it sounded like a truck was going through the woods when it did leave. It came up on me so stealthily, very, very quiet. Never knew it was there as far as sound goes. But when it left, it was definitely a show of force, telling me who's boss.
Sure.
And
So
that's my
when things happen, at least for me, you can feel that what you're seeing is not supposed to be something you're supposed to be seeing. Did you get that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%, 100%. It was two things going on. No, number one, he was telling me who the boss was.
Yeah.
Like, you're in my area. I'm gonna show because I believe that. I don't think that they're like dropped off by the aliens. I don't think any of that stuff personally. If you want to believe that, that's your prerogative.
Sure.
I think that when you're born into, like, you could stand next to a deer in the woods and never see it. I've been right
Oh,
almost on
absolutely.
top
Oh,
of
yeah.
white-tailed deer, and they jump up, and oh my God, there's a deer there. Never knew it was there. So you get these things that are masters of their environments, masters of stealth. If
Yeah.
they don't want you to know it's there, it's not gonna let you know it's there.
Right.
Right. So this was just let me know, hey, I'm here and you're in my area. So, I really don't necessarily know if I want you in my area.
Right.
So the best way is to show up and go, hey, I'm the boss.
Here I
You're
am.
not.
Maybe a little warning. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
don't mess
yeah.
with me. Yeah.
Oh man, it scared the living. Well, yeah, it took me a long time before I went back to the woods.
Were you
A
camping
long
in a
time.
tent?
Yes, I was
Oh,
tent
God,
camping.
man.
And yeah, yeah. In fact, a good friend of mine named Abe Del Rio, you should have him on the show sometime. He's a great dude. We went back just a couple weeks ago to face my fears because it's been 20 plus years since
Sure.
this
Yeah.
happened, and
Yep.
and
Yeah.
we went, and I was nervous as hell the whole time.
Right.
I was nervous as hell. It was nerve
So
wracking.
that's interesting. Like we had Matt Lankford. I'm gonna pronounce his last name wrong. I'm so sorry, Matt. But he had the same kind of situation, like where he saw a Bigfoot, but like that Bigfoot, when it was making its way across the field, it was doing that same thing. Like it was pissed off that it was seen, and it was making a show about it. And
Yeah.
I'm so frustrated, like a toddler almost, was throwing a
I,
fit.
but part of it too, though, was a warning, right?
Right.
So I mean, I think it wanted to be seen. It knew it was gonna be seen. It stood, but I know what you mean. When,
Yeah.
when I've heard that same stuff, like they get made and they get angry, like,
Mm.
I'm being seen. Now I'm gonna be really, really angry about this. Yeah, it's almost like a toddler throwing a fit,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what he said too. So that's your stories kind of match up there. I'm just saying,
We-
Gabriel.
You're so captivating, young individual. How do people find you? How do people find your book? And tell us.
All of your stuff, your
Yeah, all of your stuff.
podcast. I mean, you are,
Yeah.
like you're saying, fascinating for sure.
Well, you know what? You can find me. Go to the iHeart app, and in that little there's a little search area up there in that app. Just type in After Hours AM. You can find us Facebook. I'm very accessible. You can find us that way. YouTube. We're on YouTube now. For years, I fought the whole video thing because, old school radio guy. I don't want to be seen. What are you talking about?
Right.
So now we're doing that as well on YouTube. So yeah, absolutely, we're definitely findable. My books, I'm having actually a total of 4 of them being published right now, and it's Foundations is the company. 5th one I just gave my agent, so I'll have 5 done. I just got the 5th one done, and COVID, as terrible as it was, it gave me a lot of time to write.
Right.
So a lot of these are thanks to, I guess in a roundabout way to COVID. It gave me a chance to
Dr.
have that
Fauci,
minute.
we appreciate you.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm going to go that far, Gabriel, but it did give us that minute to be able to pursue some stuff you wouldn't have been able to pursue.
Right.
Foundations, and they should be out this October. And so we will definitely keep you guys posted on that. Again, After Hours AM has been, oh gosh, I think I've been doing the show in its current form for about 12 years now.
It's fantastic.
And so, yeah. So, yeah, definitely check that out. But you guys have a hell of a show here as well. So I do
Oh.
appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, thank you. Well, speaking of the hell of a show, Raven, what do
Fantastic.
we have going on?
Oh my gosh, Gabriel. I'm super excited. End of the month, which is very soon. This month
It
is
is.
flying by, which it's good. It's
The
good
older you
because
get, the quicker time goes.
that's what they say, right?
Yeah.
But we are going to be at Pear Jam on August 29th with our good friends from the Black Lantern Paranormal. So they're out of Gettysburg, and we will be in Gettysburg. We're going to be doing the whole thing. We'll go to the convention. We'll do some investigating, hopefully with them, and some other
Our history
investigating.
comes alive. I love it.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah,
about
I
it.
got one more thing quick
Yeah,
I want to touch
absolutely.
on. In this October, well, it'll be our 7th annual Minnesota Bigfoot Conference. And in
We'd
Grand
like to
Rapids,
go.
Minnesota. Yeah, come
get us
on down.
in.
We always have big
I
speakers. I'll be one of the
feel like
speakers
we
this
have
year
to.
talking about
Oh,
Minnesota Iceman.
good.
So yeah,
What
this is our
date is that,
7th year.
Joel?
What's that?
Do you know what date that is?
Yeah, it's the first weekend in October. So you're looking
Perfect.
like October 3rd. Come on down. It's a Timber Lake Lodge over there in Grand Rapids. Beautiful
Yeah.
place to be. Come on in. You're gonna be able to meet, some cool people, see some cool speakers.
Meet
that
you.
can meet me.
Yeah.
You can always stop in and go to Facebook to the Minnesota Bigfoot Conference and get your tickets. We're almost sold out, so you gotta act quickly. But
Wow.
we gotta
We'll do
really-
that.
Yeah. Last year we had over 3,000 people, so I think
Wow.
we're actually topping that. So we're gonna be
Good.
yeah, it's quite the weekend. It's a quite fun weekend. We even do some Bigfoot hunting. So you come on
Oh.
out, you can actually hit the woods with us.
I think we get Gabriel out there and we try to convince him a little bit further, Joel.
Let's do it.
Right?
Let's
He
do
needs to
it.
see what he needs to have a coffee or maybe even a whiskey with a Bigfoot.
Tell you
to
what, you
act-
guys come up to Duluth area. I will make sure you get out looking for squatches.
Yes.
We
I'm
will
in.
do that.
I'm on my
And
way
we'll get
right
it on
now.
video. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, tonight's
Absolutely.
conversation began on After Hours AM and continued here on Darkwoods Paranormal. For 2 hours, the roles shifted. The questions changed direction. And the two programs came together around one shared purpose, examining the unexplained without sacrificing honesty, respect, or critical thought. Joel, thank you for joining us and for giving us, your audience, the benefit for more than 30 years of investigation, research, writing, and broadcasting. And your stories were unbelievable. The people and the history that you have met and been around
Yeah.
is extraordinary. Your career reminds us that serious paranormal work does not begin by deciding what people must believe. It begins by asking better questions. It means listening carefully to the wilderness without placing words in the mouth. It means enjoying the area around you. And to all our guests tonight, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate you staying open one more hour, staying awake. Joe, if you don't mind hanging around just one more second as we sign off. Thank you
Don't
for joining
mind.
us here at Darkwoods Paranormal. We'll be back on Thursday. What do we have going on Thursday? Thursday.
Thursday. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah. You know what? I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Joe, hang on a little
Have
bit
a good
longer.
night. Have a good night.
Absolutely.